I'm Seth Clevenger, Technology Editor at Transport Topics. I'm joined here today with CEO of McLeod Software, Tom McLeod. We're here in the exhibit hall at ATA's Management Conference and Exhibition in Philadelphia. And McLeod Software this year is marking the 30th year serving the transportation industry since Tom founded the company in 1985. So we figured it'd be a great opportunity to pick his brain a little bit and learn a little bit more about the history of transportation management software and how we've come to the point we are at today. So maybe you could really quickly provide us an overview of all the changes you've seen in the truck technology world since 1985 to here in 2015.
Well, you know, I can't cover all the changes
Right.
by any means, but certainly there have been a lot of changes. When we started, companies were essentially replacing typewriters. Many things were done manually, and also their operating environment was much different. Deregulation of the rating and entry into the industry had just occurred, and it was almost like the Wild West with so many hundreds and really thousands of truckload carriers especially opening up. LTL carriers suddenly had lost their franchise and the landscape had changed for them, and so that was a period of really great change. But at the same time, you had many of the costs were stable. Fuel costs were very stable for really the first 15 years we were in business, and maintenance costs were decreasing. The maintenance cycles were extending, and so many carriers were being supported in that light. The last 15 years have been much different. There have been great fluctuations in fuel prices. As the EPA regulations have kicked in on engines, the cost of the equipment has continued to rise. So in that era, it's been important that the management teams at the trucking companies mature and get better. And really in the last 15 years, I'd say that would mark the difference in companies that have done well versus companies that maybe have not done so well. It would be the maturity of the management teams and how they've gotten better at using information that they have. And a lot of that has to do with information systems that have to do a whole lot more than just print a freight bill and print a check, which is all we had to do in the beginning.
So back to 1985, what was in the market back then in terms of software? Was this basically a whole new world to explore? And what was the main problem that you saw in the trucking marketplace that needed to be solved when you first started the company and offered your products? You know, what was the problem? What was the issue that you really needed, the industry really needed to solve?
Well, it very much was simply a move from manual shuffling paperwork, typing freight bills, typing checks on the typewriter, keeping up with load information on typically a large dispatch pad, or sometimes just a regular lined legal pad. No visibility of what was going on in terms of loads that were available or where the trucks were, where they were going to be available. And this was really true across all industries. Up until the mid-'80s, computer systems had been prohibitively expensive for most companies, and so only the largest enterprises had a computer of any sort, and those computers were really pretty rudimentary devices compared to what was coming along. So in many markets, many industries, it was really the beginning of automation from an information standpoint. And so for me, it was just great timing, great time to be starting up. Even the people that had been in the computer industry before were so steeped in the older technologies, many of them got left behind, as everything really started over at that time. So thankfully I was able to really get in front of some great customers. If we've had anything to credit success to, certainly the customers that we've had over the years who have kept us pointed in the right direction, pointed out to us the things systems really needed to do, and who have collectively helped us move in the right direction would be a very important secret to our success.
Okay. And when did I guess the dispatch software come along? Some of you mentioned the early days and automating some of many of the functions that were done manually on pen and paper, and computerizing that and moving that to software. When did the applications start to become more complex, to get into dispatch, to get into broader fleet management? Was there a sort of a turning point where the technology became more widespread and accepted, where you started to be able to offer more and more capabilities like that?
Well, from the beginning, we allowed load information at the point that the load was available, which
Right.
is essentially the same point that it's entered into computer systems today. And that did allow visibility for the people at the trucking company that were doing planning. Now, the benefit of having it in the computer system is the information didn't have to be re-entered or retyped when you got ready to print the freight bill. It also didn't have to be re-entered when you went to print the driver's paycheck. So there was some great labor savings. Companies were able to grow without having to linearly add administrative staff. But from the beginning, we were making the load information, the truck information available from his last dispatch. Certainly that was much simpler at that time than it is now, as we, over the last 30 years, have incrementally added lots and lots of features.
Right.
We'll turn the truck red if he's going to run late now. We didn't do that in the beginning.
Right.
We can show you if the driver has enough hours, according to the hours of service rules, to make this next pre-assignment that you're considering.
Right.
It was a while before we added that
Right.
function from those early systems. Just, initially for the dispatchers, just to be able to see the loads that were available was a big step forward.
Sure.
And a big help to improve some efficiency in the beginning.
Okay. And what about adoption of technology, adoption of TMS systems? Back in the early days, back in 1985, I imagine there was probably not very much in the market at that time, and if there was, it was probably more proprietary in-house. Is that the case? When did this market, this third-party market for TMS software, really reach a point where many fleets were looking to adopt?
Well, many other people had the idea of developing a trucking operations system at that time. At one point, I think I could have named or listed 60 other software companies that offered some form of a package for the trucking industry. Most of us at that time were, small regional players. The trucking companies certainly showed a willingness almost from the beginning to adopt a computer technology. Really, in terms of the sales cycle, it was much shorter than it is these days because the systems were simpler.
Right.
And the benefits were fairly obvious. If you've ever watched people type freight bills on a typewriter, you can see it's very labor intensive, and the companies could see the benefit. I didn't even have to show software in order to get a company signed up to install a system. I just brought in a legal pad, drew circles to show the information flow, and we'd get going. These days, the sales cycle is much longer. Companies are really looking for a great deal of sophistication in the system, tracking all kinds of things in terms of billing and automated fuel surcharges and automated accessorials and accessorial pay on the driver's side and various rules for the driver pay. So expecting a great deal more sophistication out of the systems, and that continues to bring more efficiency to the companies that are using the systems.
Sure. And we mentioned earlier how computer technology started to really start to take hold in the business environment 30 years ago. Of course, you look around today, and it's amazing how technology has advanced, and we now have advanced computers in our in our pockets, and you guys at McLeod have taken full advantage of that with some of your product releases. How much has the advancement of technology, both hardware and communications technology, really opened the pathway for companies like McLeod to do more for their customers?
Well, certainly it's a big challenge trying to keep up with the demands of our customers, who are simply responding to the demands of their customers. It's a big challenge to serve the shippers and the complex changes in the supply chain that are going on. So the challenge of getting that done has helped to weed out our competition. Sometimes we're facing a problem. I can console myself by reminding our people that, well, this is the thing that's weeding out people that we used to compete with. But there is a lot more to be done. One of the biggest changes here in the last few years has been how connected the trucking company systems are or should be to other systems that are external. Their customers, their other vendor partners. Now the internet, in terms of communication, has really revolutionized our ability to make those connections. In the 20 years ago, connection meant dialing up on a modem, waiting for a connection, hoping the line didn't drop, and paying very expensive per minute charges and very slow data transfer rates. So certainly in the last 20 years, the communication has been just absolutely revolutionized. Now extending to a smartphone or smart tablet device where the companies are expecting their people to be able to access the information they need and act on it on a timely basis.
Sure. And we've also seen McLeod's offerings to diversify. You guys have products for the brokerage market and LTL as well. Any quick thoughts on how you guys have been able to what's driven that movement on your part? Beyond the mere desire to expand. Have you seen more and more complexity in the operations and diversity in the operations of your customers? Truckload carriers, for example, with opening a brokerage arm. You have more and more customers who want different software needs for different parts of their operations.
Yeah. As I said earlier, I just think we've had the best customers in the world who have kept us focused on the highest priorities. I've tried to keep us focused on things we could do really, really well for our customers and not branch out or expand our product line before we could really deliver what customers required at the highest level. And we've seen most trucking companies being pulled by their customers, their shippers, to offer more services. So as they've expanded, we've responded by broadening our product line and adding the capability so the transportation enterprise can achieve the integration that they need and bring about even additional efficiencies by being able to communicate between divisions and then do consolidations at the end of the process in order to have a better view of what's going on from a financial perspective. But really in many ways, even in the last 30 years, I feel like we're just beginning to scratch the surface. I feel like we're just getting started. While our systems are light years ahead of where they would have been 30 years ago, in many ways, I feel like we're just at the beginning. There's still so much opportunity and capability, things we've already had requested, and many other things that can bring about additional efficiency and improvement in the way the carriers operate, I'm real excited about what we've got ahead of us just in the next few years.
Well, it'll be fun to see what's on the horizon in the next 30 years.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, the next 30, should be even more amazing.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Tom. Is there anything else you'd like to add on, the changes that you've seen in the last 30 years, and where you see the industry heading, and on the technology side?
I think the only thing to add is that the biggest difference between one company to the next, or the biggest differences in the way the companies run really boils down to the quality of their people.
Yeah.
Everybody really has access to the same technology, and we certainly see our tools implemented. We see a wide variation on how well a company may use what's there. So we offer training programs, we offer consulting and guidance to help. At the end of the day, it's really up to the companies as to how well they perform. And certainly we're rooting, and that's, again, where I credit our customers in having such a big impact and playing such an important role in helping us to be where we are today.
Great. Well, it was great to hear from you, Tom. I appreciate you taking the time to join with us, and I'm sure our viewers and readers appreciate your insights as well. So it's great to catch up here.
Thank you, Seth.
All right. Thanks, Tom.